So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, we're in the middle of a conversation called Humans, what it means to be us. And I love when we get to dive into aspects of the scriptures that are sometimes overlooked. Because when you go to a space like this, when you go to church, whether it's in Calabasas or South Pasadena or Hollywood or London, New York or Mexico City or Ecuador, wherever it may be in the world, you're really prepared to talk about God. But what your inner world is actually talking about is you. Most of the time when we're trying to understand who God is, we're actually trying to understand who we are. And we're trying to understand how God works in the world. We're trying to understand why our lives are the way that they are. Which is why there's this inseparable connection between human interaction and human engagement and this thing we call faith. We stop believing in God when we stop believing in people. We lose our faith in God when we lose our faith in each other. We feel disconnected from God when we're disconnected from one another. You cannot separate human experience with transcendent experience. And that's a part of the challenge sometimes, even when you're talking about searching for God. There are very few people who would wake up in the morning and go, I'm on a desperate search for God. There are a few. We would call them neurotic. But there are people, and I was one of them, that woke up one day and thought, I'm on a search for God. Does God exist? Most of us are not on a search for God. We're on a search for life. We're trying to figure out how to do this, how to experience this. And if you feel as if something is missing inside of you, no matter how much you attain, no matter how much you accomplish, that's when there comes this sense of desperation inside of us. If you look at the journey of the human struggle, if you're just working on surviving, life isn't that complicated. You're just trying to make sure you can eat, that you can drink, and that you can breathe. Those are the three fundamental needs to exist. If you're breathing and you're eating and you're drinking, you're alive. And then you face the next day. And everything inside of you actually drives you to meet those basic needs in your life. I'm hungry. A phrase I hate is people saying to me, I'm starving. I used to be way more judgmental. I've kind of pulled back a little bit. But when people would say to me, I'm starving, I would look at them and say, you're not starving. You've never starved. You've barely missed a meal. It's obvious. And I felt like starving should be reserved for people who are starving. I'm famished. You're not. You just need your smoothie. There's a huge gap between being famished and being what you are. But our bodies tell us, I'm hungry. And in fact, your body will not only tell you that you're hungry, your body will tell you what you're hungry for. When you start craving things, especially when you're pregnant, not that I know, okay? I've heard rumors and been married to one. But when you're pregnant, your body tells you what to eat because of the nutrition, the vitamins that you need. Your body will actually scream, and you think you want a steak, but what you need is protein. You think you need an orange, what you need is vitamin C. Your body will actually tell you what you need by what you crave. And the same way with your thirst. Now, I don't really like water. I know we've created this massive industry around water, but I'm old enough to remember when water was free. And it's astonishing to me. I remember when that transition happened, when people started selling water. I thought, will they start selling oxygen one day? And then I went to an oxygen bar in Germany, and I realized they're selling oxygen too, the basic things that we need that are actually available in this created order. But your body tells you when you're thirsty, if you've ever exercised. And that's the only time water tastes good to me. When I'm just absolutely dehydrated and my body's screaming for fluids, I say, I need a coffee. But I actually know what I need is that water. I just like it flavored and colored and processed through a bean. But I know I'm thirsty, and when I'm dehydrated, it's my body saying there's a fundamental human need you have that you are not satisfying. So I drank the water. And if you've ever been out of breath, I've had lung issues ever since I was younger, or actually a young adult, when I had a bout with TB. And I have scars in my lungs, so breathing has always been a challenge for me. So I have all these little oxygen things at the house. For the days where I cannot get oxygen into my lungs, you just take that for granted. Those of you who just breathe easy. In fact, yesterday, Kim's like, "Are you okay? You seem like you're having a problem breathing." Breathing is an occupation for me. For other people, it's a hobby, but for me, it's a job. I have to work at breathing, and you only know you need oxygen when you don't have it. Then you realize that it's fundamental that you crave it, and you'll never crave anything. You'll never crave water or food as much as you will crave oxygen when you don't have it. We know this from the physiological story of being human. But what we oftentimes don't pay attention to is that there are deeper human cravings, more fundamental to your existence than your need for food, water, or air. You have intrinsic longings that are evidence of God inside of you. In fact, one of the ways you can know that you're an animal is that you breathe and that you eat and you drink. This is how you can know that you are a physical being, but one of the ways you can know that you're a spiritual being is that you have soul cravings that are unexplainable, outside of something transcendent touching your soul. When I was on my journey to be a psychologist, and I loved psychology, and I had no relationship at that time in my life with any sense of God, but I really was fascinated with how humans work. And a huge part of why I was fascinated by how humans work is I didn't seem to know how to work as a human. And so I remember early on when I started reading Freud, because everybody had to read Freud, and it just seemed like every class, every course, every study was Freud. And what to me was fascinating was not Freud's conclusions, but Freud's ambition. I never agreed with Freud's conclusions, but I definitely agreed with his ambition. He was trying to understand why humans do what they do. And that is a critically important question. Why do you do what you do? What motivates you? What drives you? What unconscious fuel ignites every morning when you wake up that you may be completely unaware of it? But they are the results of your soul cravings. By the way, Freud, originally thought it was all about pleasure. What drives us is our sex drive. And what's interesting to me is that this pleasure principle was the driving focus of all of his view of humanity. Everything we have in psychoanalysis is actually built around that universe. But near the end of his life, he wrote a book called Civilization and Its Discontents. And he changed his mind. He basically said, I was wrong. It's not pleasure. It's actually aggression. He thought, no, what actually drives human is aggression. It's the need to power, to rule, to conquer, to dominate other human beings. I don't know if either one of them is right, but I do know is that the question is important. And the scriptures actually give us an answer. In 1 Corinthians 13, I'm going to read these two verses 12 and 13. Paul says this, now we see a dim reflection, as if we're looking into a mirror, but then we shall see clearly. Now I know only in part, but then I will know fully as God has known me. So these three things continue forever: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. Paul's acknowledging that we don't really understand ourselves. We don't really understand the world that we live in. We don't really fully understand life, that there's always going to be something mysterious Not just about who God is, but who God is in relationship to us. We're always going to be seeing through this glass dimly. It's like we're looking through a fog. And no matter how long you live or how intimately you ever walk with God, you will never have a complete, comprehensive understanding of God. If you think you do, you're just a narcissist, confused. Because God is mysterious. He's bigger than us. There's always something unknown about God for us. And when there's something unknown about God, guess what that implies? There will always be something, in a sense, unknown about you. And sometimes it's that you underestimate yourself. You don't realize how much the image of God in you affects your potential, your capacity, your creative essence. And sometimes it's an overestimation in the wrong direction. We think that there's certain things God wants that God does not want. It's just that we want them, so we want God to want them for us at least. But then he makes this statement. There's like this triad, this trilogy. And it's in the scriptures over and over again. And I think sometimes we just treat things poetically because he says, and so these things continue forever. These things remain. Faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. And how many of you have not seen that on a card? How many of you have not heard that at a wedding? And how many of you have never thought about it again? Why are these so important? Are they just a romantic expression of our highest ideals, or are they actually tapping into something that's real about who we are as human beings? I'm absolutely convinced that every human being is driven by the same cravings. And what's crazy is as different as you are from everyone on earth, and you want to be unique, right? It's kind of an odd thing. We all want to be uncommon, but we want to have things in common. You want to be unique, but you want to be the same. You want someone who understands you, but no one could understand you if there were not anything like you. And so there's this need to be different and the same at the same time, differently. And there are things about you that are unique to who you are, but there are things about you that are true to every human being. Just like every human being needs to eat. You can share that in common. By the way, if you're not a traveler, here's one way you can connect to the whole world. Everybody eats. Invite people to dinner. Across the world, people will eat. Everyone drinks. Not the same things. And not in the same volume, but everyone drinks. I remember one time someone asked me years ago, in a little bit of a condescending way, in a high alcohol space of the world, do you drink? And I said, of course I do. Drinking is essential for life. Or would you like to be more specific? And the reality is that there are things that we all have in common across the world. And one of them is that every human being is on a search for meaning. And this is true for you, and this is true for me. But what's crazy, it doesn't always look the same. And what is, to me, so amazing is that human beings are the singular species of the 8.7 million or 30 million, whatever the count is, right? We're the only species who are trying to make sense of our existence. You're the only species that needs to find meaning in the mess of life. And why does life have to make sense? Have you ever had that thought? This doesn't make any sense. You should hear a voice going, and why should it? Why do we ask why? Why is not an evolutionary question. Why doesn't help any child survive? Anybody have a kid? Anybody have a 3-year-old? 4-year-old? Why is the last question that should matter to them? When you're trying to potty train? How is that a philosophical issue? Why? Why is going to bed, when you tell them to go to bed, a philosophical argument? Why? All really children should ask is what, when, where, who, and how. That's it. If every kid could ask those questions, they would be the perfect kid. What time, Daddy, do you want me to go to bed? Where do you want me to poop? Like that's such a profound question. You would be a genius if you asked that question, right? But the question children seem to be driven by is why. That's not an evolutionary question. 2 people get eaten by the saber-tooth. When you come back, no one in the cave is saying, why did the saber-tooth spare you? No, they're saying, how did you get away? Where were you? And where was it? When did it come out? When was it hungry? Where did it come from? Those are all the evolutionary questions. Why is not an evolutionary question. In fact, it doesn't even make sense that it still exists in our evolutionary journey, and yet it is essential to being human because the divine image makes you curious about life. I know I live in the epicenter of consciousness. And I have friends that they actually become incredibly renowned in their conversations and speeches and teaching on the universe's consciousness. The universe is thinking about you. Have you heard that? The universe cares about you. The universe is for you. But here's the crazy thing. We think the universe is thinking about us, but it's actually us thinking about the universe. Humans are the creative consciousness of the universe. We're the only species on the planet that's aware of its existence and asks the question, why? And by the way, you're a meaning machine. You give meaning to things that don't even deserve meaning. Right? You ever give meaning to something someone did? Are you married? And you ask your husband, why'd you do that? Like, I wasn't even thinking that there was a why behind that. I just did it. Why'd you ask that? One of the most dangerous questions I ask, hey, honey, what's for dinner? You judging me? What? Just because I didn't cook, I didn't know. But my favorite question for Kim is at 7 o'clock at night when I'm driving, honey, what would you like for me to cook? I'm like, 7. I think that if you were asking that question sincerely, you would ask me that at 3. So I think what you're actually asking me is, would I pick something up on the way home? She goes, yes. That's right. Why? It's because we humans can read the subtlety behind the statements. How are we able to do that? It's because we're designed for meaning. By the way, what's happening right now, the sounds I'm making, these are just sounds. And these sounds are being transmitted across space from my consciousness to yours, and these sounds are being translated into meaning inside of your brain. And if I say a word like giraffe, I create a giraffe inside of your brain. Tall, orange and white giraffe, but now it's purple, and you can't stop that giraffe from turning purple because we're designed for meaning, and we create meaning in each other's lives. But it doesn't matter if there's a purple giraffe or not, but what does matter is when someone says to you, you don't matter. Wow. And then that creates meaning inside of you. Or you'll never amount to anything. Or when someone looks at you and says, you're already worthy of love. You don't have to do anything to be accepted. Human beings create meaning inside of each other. We are meaning machines in everything we do. Our posture has meaning. Stand up straight. Keep your head up. Right? They tell you, don't cross your arms because that means you're closed. You're not open. That's right. Flip them the other way. Because everything we do has meaning. Our posture, the colors we wear, the feng shui of our houses or apartments. Everything human beings do have meaning. Or is it that everything humans touch gets attributed meaning? Because we're designed in the image of God and we're designed for meaning. But here's the problem. When your soul is incongruent with God, you start giving meaning to meaningless things. And you start making the most meaningful things meaningless. And so you come to the end of yourself and you think, nothing has meaning. Nothing matters. You're driven to find meaning, and you'll change your mind throughout your life. But one thing I know is when you wake up, even though you don't ask yourself this question, you will search your entire life trying to find anything that is true or can be trusted, which, by the way, is interconnected. If nothing can be trusted, then there is no truth. And if there is truth, there is someone behind that truth that can be trusted. But not only do you have a desperate craving for meaning, a search for meaning, but you also have an intrinsic, internal, insatiable craving for progress. We're always on a search for progress. And it's kind of a crazy thing because those are two different things, meaning and progress. Meaning is about the why. Is there anything I can believe, anything I can trust, anything that's real, anything that I can build my life on? But progress is about moving forward. We humans, we just have to believe that we're going to become better than we are, or life is going to be better than it is, or the world is going to be better than it is. And the moment you stop believing in the future, you actually move toward despair. I don't want a survey where you raise your hands, but how many of us in this room struggle with depression? And I'll tell you, I do. Over and over again throughout my life. And here's what I try to remind people who struggle with depression. You cannot be depressed if you cannot imagine a better version of you. You cannot be depressed if you cannot imagine a better life than the one you have. You cannot be depressed unless you can imagine a better world than the one you live in. And so, by the way, oh, I'm depressed. That means there's a gap between what I am and who I want to be, what I have and what I want to have. There's a journey I have to make, and depression happens when I don't believe I can close that gap. Which is why we find ourselves endlessly trying to study and learn, how did other people attain the things I want? Anybody spend time doing that? I go, how did they get from here to here? Because I'm still stuck here and I want to get there. And the question is, why? You know the book that I had to read so many times, and I don't know if I ever finished it? Walden's Pond, like Walden by Thoreau. That's one thick book with lots of words, right? And it's just so dense and so thick. And I'm like, you just can't live at the pond. That's the problem, is that it actually had some brilliant things to say. I have to say, I accidentally learned from Thoreau, but I didn't want to, because I just felt like he just wants to exist in the status quo, but he never did. And so the irony is that he was almost inviting us to do something he couldn't do either. There's not a single one of you that can live in a status quo and be healthy tomorrow. If you give up on becoming a better version of you, you will become so depressed you will not have the energy to live. If you give up on dreams, ambitions. In fact, this week we had a huge conversation about, is ambition wrong? I said, I think only Christians ask that question. Except it's not true. Buddhists ask it too. They just say, yes, it's wrong. But I actually don't think ambition is wrong. I actually think it's given by God. See, I think inside of you, the image of God says, I need to create. I think inside of you, the image of God says, I need to move forward. In fact, I'm absolutely convinced, because it talks about faith, which is our search for meaning, and then hope. You know what's unusual about hope? Hope only exists in the future. There is no hope in the past. That's called regret. Anybody hope you were better 10 years ago? Probably not wasting any time going, man, I just hope I'm better looking in my 20s. Like it's just a waste of energy. All hope is in the future. The future doesn't exist. I was once at NYU, and I didn't know it was a debate, but it's a dialogue with the head of Western Buddhism. He had just come from Nepal. And our theme was, does life have purpose? And he said, life has no purpose. And I said, I think that purpose is life, and that our purpose is an expression of our life. We're going back and forth, back and forth. It goes, there's no tomorrow. There's no future. There's only now. It was really beautiful. And I said, hey, can I ask you a question? He goes, yes. I said, do you have anything scheduled for tomorrow? He goes, what? I said, I'm just curious, because there's only a now. And you seem like a very busy man, and very ambitious for a man with no ambition. And I said, do you have anything scheduled for tomorrow? He goes, well, yes, of course. And I said, well, how about next week? He goes, well, yes. How about next month? Yes. You're really in demand. Everything is scheduled for next year. Well, yes, I said, wait a minute, why aren't you just scheduling everything for today? Because all there is the now. Because even if you believe there's only the now, you have to pretend there's a future. Because humans cannot exist without a future. You're designed as a future creature. Because that's where hope lives. It's almost as if God created us, and you know how the old saying about you have to throw the shoe on the other side of the fence to give yourself the determination to climb it. It's almost like you threw your limb over there. You threw a leg and an arm and say, if you want to be a complete human, you need to go into your future. You are designed for progress. And sometimes the problem is that it's progress by the wrong measure. I need more money. I need a bigger house. I need more power. I need to have more influence. I need to be more famous. I need more and more and more. And so progress gets replaced with more. Rather than, am I becoming the human being I long to be? I was created to become. Every human being is driven by faith and by hope. By a craving for meaning and a craving for progress. And some of you already know the angst of progress. You succeed, and 5 minutes after the success, you're back to square one. You have the greatest success of your life. You celebrate for 3 minutes, and 3 minutes later, you're asking yourself, can I live up to that? Your progress becomes the enemy of your future when you start measuring yourself against it. Instead of asking the question, am I moving forward? Am I creating? Am I moving toward hope? And by the way, the moment you can embrace the fact that you're designed for progress, you don't have to apologize for it. When people go, why are you so driven? It was because I'm created in the image of God, man. I just got to create. He said, be fruitful and multiply. You just got to keep expanding, right? You know, take authority and grow. You are designed for progress, to grow, to expand, to succeed. You just need to make sure that your success isn't rooted in the wrong things. And these three remain, faith and hope and then love. Because every human being is driven not just by an intrinsic need, a craving for meaning and for progress, but for intimacy. You want to know why you do what you do? You're trying to make sense of your life, and sometimes when it doesn't make sense, you do things that don't make sense. You want to know why you do what you do? Because you're fighting for progress and you're trying to become something and you don't even know what you're trying to become. You just know you can't stay where you are, so you're just trying to move forward one step at a time. You want to understand why you do what you do? It's because you have a craving for intimacy. And this one can drive us insane. There's nothing humans long for more than intimacy, and nothing humans fear more than intimacy. So we want to be known, but we're afraid to be known. I mean, isn't that the real tricky thing in dating? Like you want them to love you, but you can't let them see you. And then later, as the relationship progresses, you're terrified because the moment they see the real you, will they tap out? Or will they stay in? One of the challenges in life is that you're designed for intimate connection to other human beings. And a huge problem with this, and art is a part of the problem sometimes. Film is a part of the problem sometimes. Jane Austen is a part of the problem sometimes. That we think intimacy is only about romance and it's only sexual. But you're designed for relationships. You're designed for community. You and I are designed for human connection, and we are never going to be healthy when we're isolated, disconnected, and alone. And you have to become comfortable acknowledging your need for other human beings. Even one of the things we will not allow in our space is that over-spiritualized language that doesn't deal with life as a reality. Because I've heard so many people say, all I need is God. Are you out of your mind? You're not designed like that. Let's go back to survival. You need to eat, you need to drink, and you need to breathe. And if you don't think you're designed for more, quote, than God, stop breathing. Have a moment of self-awareness and go, oh, God designed me for more, because God's not greedy. He's not jealous. He didn't say, I only want you to love me. That's us, not God. See, God didn't design you to, quote, only love him. He designed you to love each other. He designed you so that love would be ever expanding. He designed you so that love would go beyond a romantic relationship, but to sisterhood and brotherhood and friendship and community and family. And see, love isn't a limited commodity, so God didn't go, I created you only to love me. And everything else is unacceptable. No, he says, no, if you actually love me and know my love, you will have unlimited love for people. This is the evidence. My love doesn't absorb, it expands. But you're designed for intimacy. You're designed for connection. You're designed for people. And most of our anxiety and most of our stress and most of our depression, it doesn't come in those first two, although they can affect it. It doesn't come when we can't fully make sense of life, and it doesn't come when we're not making the progress we want. Most of the time it comes because we feel alone in the world. We feel unseen and unknown and unvalued and unloved. Maybe that's why these three remain, because you will never outgrow your need for meaning or progress or intimacy. And Jesus, he came and he said, I am the way and the truth and the life. I'm the one who created you in this complex and beautiful way with a need for faith and hope and love. He said, but I want you to understand that the greatest of these is love, so I've come personally for you to connect intimately with you. If you get nothing else out of this moment, I want you to understand that God has one specific strategy to restore you to life, and that's his love for you. And when you open your life to his love, you come alive. Because the human spirit needs nothing more desperately, nothing more earnestly than to be loved and loved completely. And it's an incredible feeling, isn't it? Those few moments in your life where you actually believe that you're loved without condition, that you don't have to do anything to earn God's love. And isn't it crazy that religion always builds its building around the name of God and says, oh, no, you have to do this to earn his love. Oh, no, you need to be filled with guilt and shame and do all these things to earn his love. When I was not a follower of Jesus, and I was studying philosophy and psychology and looking at world religions and trying to make sense of life and trying to see what my life was supposed to become and try to see if there's anyone that would ever actually love me. And what struck me about Jesus that was different than everyone else was that everyone else tells you this is what you need to do to get to God, to nirvana, to enlightenment, to forgiveness. This is what you need to do to get to God. But with Jesus, it was, no, this is what God did to get to you. So I'm not going to give you a path to God. I'm going to show you God's path to you. And his name is Jesus. He's already here. He's already present. He's already waiting. He already wants you. All the negotiations are over. All he's waiting for you to do is say, yes. I accept that you died for me. I don't know why. But sacrifice is the ultimate expression of love, so I get it, God. This is the ultimate way for you to say to me, I love you. I believe you conquered death, that you rose from the dead, and that you're here present and inviting me into a relationship with you. And all God is waiting for you to do is say yes. And I know other people want to complicate it because love is a risk. Why would God offer us unconditional love? Shouldn't he at least make us work for it? But the moment we have to work for it, it's not love. So I just want you to take a moment and just bow your heads with me and just close your eyes. If you're here in this moment and you've never crossed the line of faith or invited Jesus into your life, and it's never been super clear to you how to connect to Jesus, I want to invite you right now just to pray this simple prayer. Jesus, I give you my life. Right now, just where you are, just whisper that prayer. It's simple. It's short, but it'll change your life. Just whisper to him, Jesus, I give you my life. Jesus, I give you my life. If this is your prayer, if this is the desire of your heart, I want to pray for you. And what I want you to do right now, just very quickly, just raise your hand so I can see you. If you just pray this prayer, Jesus, I give you my life. Beautiful, beautiful. All around the room. Beautiful. Anyone else? Wonderful. Beautiful. This is your moment. Father, I thank you for each person who in this moment took that huge, courageous risk and opened up their lives to you. I pray, God, you would just wrap them up in your love and let them know they belong to you, that you'll never leave them or abandon them. This is the beginning of an eternity wrapped up in love. And through you, they will find meaning and progress and intimacy. Through you, God, they will find all they need to believe and to belong and to become. In you, they will find the power of faith and hope and love. We thank you, Father. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Can we just thank God for all those who responded to him right now? And so beautiful. So good. In a moment, I think Pastors Joe and Becca are going to come and walk you through how to connect, especially if you invited Jesus into your life. And they're going to walk you through also our giving opportunity. But I just want to say this. It's funny. I've had friends over the years who actually never gave to Mosaic. And one year they came to me because I actually did a talk and said it'd be really helpful if people gave. And they said, we just never thought Mosaic needed money. And I said, how did I communicate that? And here, let me tell you why. It's because risk in people's minds equals rich. Wow. Mosaic takes a lot of risks, and people think, oh, it's because we're rich. We're not. And we are so behind in our giving that we should never start Calabasas. I've just never seen in the Bible where God tells you to go when success is guaranteed. I always see in the scriptures, you go when there's sacrifice. So I want you to know that our strategy for funding this is a miracle. And you and I together will be that miracle. They talked about ways of connecting to Mosaic. You can be on the welcome team or the worship team or the kids team. But one of the ways all of us can join Mosaic is by being on the giving team. And so I just want to invite you, if you're a follower of Jesus, and creating a community like Mosaic here in Calabasas is meaningful and important and maybe even a calling. I want to invite you to start giving from day one so that they're the resources necessary. Because we're going to have kids space and, I don't know, do children eat? Like food for kids and, and everything costs, renting the space. It doesn't happen by magic. It happens by sacrifice. And so I'm just, always super upfront, super straight. Just want to invite you to join us in giving because that will actually catapult what we can do in Calabasas for years and years and years to come. Hey, we're so excited we're here. Joe and Beck, would you guys come? Love you guys. Thank you.